The lobby of the Grandview Hotel buzzed with energy. Business travelers rushed to catch their rides, while families decorated with suitcases chatted about their vacation plans. In the center of it all stood Liz, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She looked fierce, her eyes locked onto a figure across the room. That figure was Mark, her boyfriend. They had come to this hotel for a weekend getaway. Instead of the romantic trip they envisioned, this morning had turned into a battleground. Liz shouted, her voice echoing off the marble walls, drawing every gaze in the lobby. She felt her cheeks flush, not just from anger but from embarrassment too. It didn't make sense that they were fighting in public, but here they were. Mark remained silent, his face a tight mask. He avoided her eyes, shifting uncomfortably on his feet. "I'm sorry," he finally replied, his tone calm, but it only further ignited her. "Sorry," Liz snapped, throwing her hands up, unleashing her frustration. Around them, people moved like shadows, eyes darting over to witness the unfolding drama. The tension in the air thickened. Every second felt like an eternity, and the buzzing crowd seemed to shrink down until only they occupied the space. Liz couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was judging them, especially Mark, whose gaze was still glued to the floor. Then, just as the silence between them grew unbearable, a large television mounted in the lobby blared on. The screen flickered to life with breaking news. Liz's heart raced as she caught sight of the headline. "Hometown coach involved in scandal," it read in bold letters. Her eyes widened when she focused on the image beside the headline. It was Mark, looking stunned just like he did now. She turned slowly, disbelief washing over her. The world came crashing down around her. Just moments before, they were having a personal war, a small fight over a late wake cup. Now the gravity of a public scandal loomed heavy in the air. Mark's face paled. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he stammered, panic flooding his gaze. Liz blinked, anger faded, replaced by confusion and betrayal. "Find out what?" she demanded, her voice sharper than before. She felt like she was in a whirlwind, emotions swirling. This was far from how their day was supposed to go, far from what she thought she knew. Mark took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "I'm being investigated for mishandling funds at the academy," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. Around them, the lobby continued with its hustle and bustle, but Liz felt as if the world had stopped spinning. Mark was a coach, a mentor to so many kids back home. They had talked about his dreams to inspire young athletes and build a better community. This news snatched away the man she thought she knew. Before Liz could react, the TV continued, reporting more details about the investigation. Accusations flew around like daggers, striking Mark with every word. They spoke of missing money and rumors swirling in the air. Each detail cut deeper, and Liz's heart sank further. She asked, disbelief in her tone, "How could you not say anything?" "I was going to," he said, desperation creeping into his voice, "but I thought it would blow over." She shot back, incredulous. "Mark, this is bigger than our trip." The fight they had started to blur, and new wounds began to form, deeper than any anger they held just minutes before. A family nearby paused, clearly taking in the unfolding drama. Liz could hear the whispers, the judgment. Was she supposed to believe Mark? She wanted to be angry, but there was a part of her that wanted to reach out and help him. Yet at this moment, all she could feel was betrayal. Mark hesitated, guilt plastered on his face. "I never meant for any of this to happen, I just got caught up," Liz echoed, her voice rising. She wished she could take the words back, but they hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. It felt like the ground had fallen from beneath her. In this moment, everything seemed to unravel. She had seen the best in Mark, always believing in him. How could she be so wrong? In that lobby, the world seemed so big and yet so small. People were invested in their own lives, but here they were, a couple in crisis under the judgmental eyes of strangers. "Please, Liz, let me explain," Mark urged, his voice cracking. Liz shot back, wanting to pull away, yet wanting to understand. "I thought you were fighting for something good. I didn't ask for this, I swear. You know I care about the kids. I wanted to make things better for them, not worse," he said, desperation lacing his words. His expression flickered with a mix of regret and shame. "I just let it spiral. Handle it." Those words sat heavy between them. How often do we think we can manage our lives alone? It's a common pitfall, a belief that leaving things unsaid will protect the ones we love. Yet here they were, living proof of its destruction. Liz couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. They had talked about dreams and visions, but never about fears. She whispered, trembling slightly. Mark rubbed his forehead, his face a canvas of inner turmoil. "I don't know. I have a meeting tomorrow with the board." He trailed off, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy. All around them, life carried on. Yet the world was now split into two realities, one where they were just a couple on vacation, and the other where a scandal was unraveling everything they thought they knew. Liz's voice shook as she searched his face for answers. "I want to believe I can make it right," Mark replied, his eyes darkening with fear. "I need your support, Liz. Lose what they had." Those words hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of their vulnerability. She felt torn, suspended between love and betrayal, anger and compassion. The sincerity in her voice cut through the chaos. "You kept this from me. I know I messed up," he admitted, his voice softening, "but I really thought I could handle it alone." The pain in his eyes stirred a feeling in her, a small flicker of the love they once shared, yet the hurt was fresh, raw, and real. Maybe you should have, Liz said. The tension felt like a tightrope stretched thin between them. People continued walking by, oblivious to the depths of their struggle, but the two of them were standing at a crossroads. It was difficult to see a way forward, especially when the stakes were so high. The broadcast continued in the background, peeling away Mark's reputation layer by layer. Liz closed her eyes for a moment, wishing she had the power to make it all go away. She could feel the weight of disappointment pressing into her heart. I thought we were building something together, she whispered. Mark's expression shifted, realization dawning on him. I never meant to betray you, I thought I could protect you by keeping it a secret. Silence stretched between them, heavy and thick. In those moments, everything they had built together felt precarious. Trust was the foundation of their relationship, yet it felt so easily shaken. I don't know what to think right now, Liz finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Please, just give me a chance to make it right, Mark pleaded, his eyes searching for understanding. Liz's heart ached as emotions swirled within her. She wanted to reach out, but uncertainty wrapped around her like a vice. How could she support him when everything felt so broken? As the broadcast concluded, the reality weighed heavier. This wasn't just about a mistake, it was about trust, perception, and the journey they would both have to navigate now. They stood in the lobby, the buzz of the hotel world continuing, but everything felt still. Only they existed in this moment, strained and raw. The energy shifted, and the reality hit them both in a sudden, dizzying wave. Let's talk later. I just need time to think, Liz finally said, holding back tears. She took a step back, feeling the distance they had just created. It was a painful distance, one that echoed the uncertainty hanging over them. Mark nodded, his expression a mix of sorrow and understanding. I'll be here when you're ready, he replied, his voice low. With that, Liz turned and walked away, leaving the weight of their struggle behind her. The hotel lobby felt different now, every step echoing with the questions they had yet to answer. And as she left, she knew their story was far from over. It was just the beginning of a battle neither of them had anticipated, a battle for trust, redemption, and a love they both desperately wanted to save. The lobby of the towering Grandview Hotel was surprisingly quiet for a Saturday morning, save for the soft click of heels on the polished marble floor. Liz stood there fuming, her arms crossed tight over her chest like a shield. Across the room, Mark was fiddling with his phone, seemingly oblivious to the world around him and certainly oblivious to the storm brewing beside her. Are you kidding me? Liz's voice, sharp and cutting through the air, caught the attention of a few nearby guests as they turned their heads. The moment hung heavy, tension palpable. Mark looked up, startled. I'm sorry, she interrupted, frustration bubbling up inside her. You've had hours. We were supposed to catch that brunch with my parents, remember? His expression shifted, a flash of annoyance crossing his face. I didn't realize my phone was such a problem. Work, those words hit like a brick. Liz could feel her patience waning. Anger mixed with heartbreak as she felt the air around them thicken, filled with unspoken words. Searching for an escape, Liz glanced around the hotel lobby, elegant and grand, yet it felt like a cage, trapping her with all these emotions swirling inside. Mark sighed, his annoyance crackling in the air. It matters, Liz, it always has. In that moment, everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. She wanted to tell him how it felt, how lonely it was to be in a relationship where work always took precedence. But today, that wasn't the focus. Today was about frustration about how he kept disappointing her repeatedly, and how tired she was of being the one who cared most. Before she could respond, a loud beep from the hotel lobby's flat-screen TV interrupted their heated exchange. Liz turned, eyes drawn to the screen. The news anchor's voice cut through the silence with a jarring announcement, breaking news from our city. The words hung in the air, ear-piercing and chilling, as the camera switched to a familiar face. Liz squinted, recognizing him immediately. It was Mark, not just any Mark, her Mark. The screen flashed a grainy video of him speaking, his mouth moving quickly as if caught mid-sentence. Time froze, the arguments faded away, and the world shrank down to that one moment. Staring wide-eyed at the screen, Liz felt her heart drop into her stomach. Mark, she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark had paled, color draining from his face as reality crashed over him like a wave. I didn't want you to find out like this, he stuttered, his voice frantic. She shot back, her anger melting into shock. He pleaded, desperation edging his tone. Just not here. The news anchor continued, detailing accusations and anonymous sources, shadows of doubt punctuating every sentence. There are claims of funds being misused at the sports academy Mark coaches for, she said, her voice a cold blade slicing through the moment. Liz's mind raced, various thoughts colliding. The trivial arguments about being late felt so small now, like a grain of sand in the vast sea of this revelation. This was huge, devastatingly huge. Did you really think you could protect me from this? Mark struggled to meet her gaze. I thought I could handle it myself. I didn't want to drag you into my mess. For a moment, sadness washed over her, mixing with the anger swirling inside. She knew he had always tried to bear burdens alone, thinking it would be noble, not realizing it only bred misunderstanding. But this was different. They were building something together. How could he allow this to happen? As the broadcast continued, Liz could see the panic flaring in Mark's eyes, a mirror reflecting her own. She whispered, her voice cracking, "How could you not tell me?" She gestured at the TV, her mind racing through the implications, the impact on his career, on their relationship, on everything they had imagined together. Mark ran a hand through his hair, frustration and regret visible in his clenched jaw. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I thought," he paused, swallowing hard. "I thought I could fix it. I didn't want to ruin our weekend. Once it seemed so easy to love." They had dreams of building a life together, exploring the world, growing old side by side. But now it felt like an entire universe was collapsing between them. Trust so easily given now faded beneath layers of deceit. This wasn't just about a mistake. This was about a fracture, a real split in how they viewed one another. Liz echoed, struggling to keep her voice steady. "You think you can fix this? You're under investigation, Mark." He stepped forward, desperation growing in his eyes. "I know," he took a moment, his breath shaky, "but I can't do this alone, Liz." The words pulled at something deep within her. Could she really stand beside him, knowing this dark cloud loomed over them? What if it all fell apart? They had shared so much, laughter, dreams, even mundane moments that felt special. But could she endure the weight of this betrayal? Every second felt agonizingly slow, the world around them fading into the background, mere props in the emotional turmoil heating their exchange. Liz softened for a second, considering his gaze filled with genuine fear. It was hard to reconcile that image with the chaos they were wrapped in now. The TV blared on, offering more details about the investigation as if they were the audience to a horror story. She wanted to turn it off to drown out the noise, but it only added to the whirlwind of emotions they were both experiencing. "I thought you were better than this," she finally confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "You talked about being a role model, about making the world better for those kids." He exploded, his frustration reaching its apex, but then the lines blurred. His words hung thick in the air like smoke from a fire that had been raging just beneath the surface. The truth was starting to surface. How often do we scramble to prove our worth, sometimes losing sight of what really matters? "Mark," she said softly, fighting back tears. "If you were so focused on doing good, how did it go so wrong? Why didn't you ask for help?" Hot embarrassment crept up her cheeks as she glanced around the lobby. The few guests who had been wrapped up in their own worlds were now turning to steal glances, ears tuned into the tension spilling over. The weight of shame pressed down on her, amplified by the colorful headlines flashing across the TV. "Because," he said, his voice breaking, "I didn't want to see you disappointed in me. I didn't want to see the look on your face when you found out I'd messed up." Each word was a dagger, piercing through the remnants of their relationship. The dream they had crafted together started to look less like home and more like a cage. He looked defeated, and yet there was a spark of hope still trying to break through the gray clouds of despair hovering above them. Liz paused, searching for the right words, but they felt almost impossible to find. "You should have trusted me. You think I wouldn't stand by you?" Mark's eyes flickered, seemingly lost in a storm of emotions. "I was afraid of how this would change everything for us." As the chaos around them intensified, a voice inside Liz screamed for clarity. Trust and protection were intertwined, but they were also fragile. One wrong choice could shatter everything. Mark's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. "I know," he whispered. They stood at the crux of everything they had built, and in that moment Liz felt something inside her shift. Could they fix this? Could they find a way back from the edge of the heartbreak waiting to swallow them whole? "I need time to think," she said at last, her voice steady but quiet, a reflection of the inner turmoil she felt. Mark's expression fell, the weight of her words cutting deep. "Please don't walk away." The stark reality was they were both 4 steps into a powerful storm, and every second counted. Liz glanced at the TV one more time as the news report continued to dissect Mark's life, turning it inside out. She felt so small, so lost. "Time may be what we both need," she replied before turning away, forcing herself to leave the heated moment behind. With every step, uncertainty echoed, and she felt the distance expanding between them. Mark's voice was soft as she walked away, barely a whisper over the rush of emotions. As she marched out of the lobby, the world outside felt both daunting and liberating. She could still hear the murmurs of the hotel's lobby, but in her heart, a single thought pushed through. This battle would not define them. For better or worse, they would face the storm together, eventually finding clarity amid the chaos. But that future, fragile and uncertain, was something only time could reveal. Each of them would need to confront their own truths, their own choices, before they could find the path that would lead them back to one another. The journey was long, the stakes unmeasurably high. And yet, with every step away, Liz held on to a flicker of hope, believing that just maybe they could weather the storm as they worked to piece together their broken trust. The echo of Liz's voice shattered the calm in the Grandview Hotel lobby, reverberating off the marble walls. "How many times do I have to tell you? Her anger rippled through the room, turning heads and drawing curious glances from nearby travelers. Mark stood at the front desk, his phone clutched tightly in his hand, looking like a deer caught in headlights. "I'm trying to get things sorted out for us," he replied, his voice strained, but that didn't ease the fire blazing inside Liz. "Sorted out? You mean late again, right?" She slammed her purse onto the counter, the sound sharp enough to make even the hotel staff flinch. "I'm sorry, sometimes things come up," Mark shot back, frustration mingling with a hint of fear. With every word, Liz felt her feelings bubble over, frustration morphing into something deeper. Love was supposed to be easy, right? They had dreams, plans for the future, but somehow here they were in public, in a spat that felt small but held the weight of their relationship. Around them, busy travelers continued to move, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm brewing in the heart of the lobby. She yelled, her cheeks flushing with more than just anger. His expression crumpled, and for a brief moment Liz felt a flicker of guilt, but the fire burned hotter, fueling her words. "You have no idea how much I sacrifice for you to do what you love." He interjected, but she could see it, a glimmer of defeat in his eyes. Before she could respond, the TV mounted on the wall flickered to life. The familiar jingle of breaking news spilled into the room. Liz and Mark turned as one, the world around them fading as the announcer's serious tone cut through their argument. "The city is buzzing with shock as we bring you breaking news. A local coach is currently under investigation for monetary fraud allegations that have sent ripples through the sports community." Mark's face drained of color, his mouth opening slightly in horror. Liz squinted at the screen it couldn't be. As if in a twisted slow-motion replay, the camera zoomed in on a familiar face speaking nervously. "Mark," she whispered, feeling as if the ground had fallen out from beneath her. "Please listen," he begged, his voice shaky. Her heart raced, caught between disbelief and rage. The report continued, detailing accusations that felt like daggers in her chest. "Not now, not like this," he murmured, pacing now clearly rattled. She shot back, Mark's shoulders hunched as he struggled to form words. I thought I had everything under control." Shock spread through Liz like wildfire. It felt unreal, like one of those stories that people tell but never think will actually happen to them. She stared at him, tears pricking her eyes. "You let me go on thinking everything was fine. I could have supported you, but you kept this secret," he admitted, anguish spilling from him. "I didn't want to let you down." Pressure, such a simple word, yet it felt heavy and insurmountable in this context. He had been juggling expectations, trying to be both the star coach and the perfect boyfriend. Maybe he had underestimated the risks, but she needed honesty, not just a facade. Scared. He demanded, her voice rising again amidst the dwindling crowd around them who were drawn to the unfolding drama. Before he could answer, the news anchor continued, feeding their fears. "In light of these allegations, the local team has suspended all activities. Parents and players alike are calling for accountability." The words pierced Liz's heart. She asked, disbelief laced with concern. He looked around, practically pleading with her to understand. "I thought I could fix it before it reached anyone." She took a deep breath, her mind racing. A whirlwind of emotions surged within her, each one wrestling for dominance, anger, fear, betrayal. "What do you mean fix it? How do you fix accusations like this?" Mark dropped his head, the fight gone from him. "I messed up," he said, voice barely a whisper. "I thought I could handle it alone." Liz's heart softened slightly, battling against the anger swirling inside. She knew he often bore the weight of the world on his shoulders, but this was different. It was a choice he made to keep her in the dark, to carry his burden alone. She asked, voice shaking. As the broadcast continued, filling the room with shocking details, Liz felt her resolve begin to shatter. There was no going back. The truth, once tethered to the dim shadows of secrecy, now danced boldly in the light of day. Reality had transformed, and their future hung precariously in the balance. Around them, the hustle of the hotel continued, oblivious to the storm of emotions raging within. It was surreal. This moment felt monumental. How could they come back from this? "Please, Liz," Mark reached out, his eyes pleading. "If you walk away now, you might as well be leaving me for good." "I want to believe you," she said, her voice laced with sadness. "But how can I?" He pressed, desperation clear in the way he held her gaze. "Tell me what I can do to make this right." She looked away, tears spilling over as the weight of their choices bared down. It was hard to form a reply as the host continued spooling details about the investigation, but they felt like echoes of their own shattered hopes and dreams. "I need time," she whispered, the resolve in her voice wavering. Mark's face paled, fear etching itself into his features. "No, don't say that. We can work through this together." Clock was ticking, and every second felt unbearable. The weight of the situation pronounced as now even the bustling sound of luggage wheels rolling across tiles seemed to fade into a muted background. In that moment, it became painfully clear. Love was messy and trust was fragile. Together, Liz asked, sadness spilling out, "You didn't let me see any of your struggles." "I'm sorry," Mark's voice wavered, a whisper wrapped in vulnerability. "Then you have to show me you care, show me that I matter." She stepped back, grasping her purse tightly as she struggled to find her words. "It's chaos right now," he muttered, frustration clawing at the edges of his voice. The news report flickered with more details, names and rumors filling the air. Liz stole one last glance at the screen, the feelings swirling like a storm within. But could she trust him? Could they rebuild from this mess? The uncertainty wrapped around her heart like a vice. "I'll think about it," she finally whispered, feeling the weight of indeterminate paths stretch out before them. As she walked away, heart heavy and racing, the world outside beckoned for clarity. Questions flooded her mind, each one more tumultuous than the last. She hoped against hope that they could find a way forward together, eventually discovering the courage to confront the vortex of uncertainty. But as the glass doors opened and she stepped out into the sunlit street, Liz felt the cold reality settle in. The future remained indetermined, but one thing was clear: love, like life, was as unpredictable as the weather. It could tear you apart or bring you back together, but only if you faced the storm head-on. The journey forward would be anything but easy. But as Liz took her first steps away from the chaotic heart of the lobby, she clung to the faintest glimmer of hope, ready to confront whatever came next, together or apart. Liz yelled, her voice echoing across the sleek, polished marble of the Grandview Hotel lobby. People turned their heads, caught off guard by the sudden eruption of emotion. Check-in counters and luggage carts had been mere background noise, but now all eyes were on them. Across the room, Mark stood, palms sweating, his phone in one hand and a sheepish look on his face. He started, but the words caught in his throat. "No," Liz snapped. "We had a plan, and yet here I am waiting like I'm an afterthought." Mark's expression shifted from shock to frustration. "I'm trying, I had a meeting. Needed you for what?" Her heart raced, a mix of anger and disappointment swirling together. This was supposed to be a weekend getaway, a break from everything. Instead, they were cementing yet another fight. Mark clenched his jaw, a sign of the battle raging within him. He waved a hand around, clearly embarrassed by the attention. "What do you think I want?" Liz shot back, her voice rising as the emotional tension mounted. Just as the silence hung thick and precarious between them, the hotel lobby's giant television screen flickered to life. Liz's gaze quickly shifted away from Mark, intrigued. The anchor's serious voice cut through their escalating argument, making every other sound dissolve into the background. "Breaking news this morning from our city," the anchor began, their tone crisp and urgent. "Local sports coach Mark Harris is under investigation for possible fraud." Time seemed to stand still, but Liz's heart raced. She spun back to Mark, who had gone pale as a ghost. She gasped, unable to process the words tumbling through her mind. Mark's face contorted with panic, the phone slipping from his grip. No, this can't be happening," he muttered, barely above a whisper. As the camera zoomed in on his shocked expression, Liz's stomach dropped. She felt the walls start to close in, a sense of dread washing over her. "I was going to tell you," he said, his voice cracking. She demanded, shaking her head in disbelief, "Find out that you're a fraud." Each word cut deeper than the last, the betrayal hitting like a tidal wave. "I swear, Liz, it's not what it looks like," he pleaded, eyes wide and panicked. But the words from the TV continued to roll over them, a grim backdrop to their unraveling reality. "The investigation has sparked outrage among parents and players." Liz echoed, her voice trembling. "You think we can just push this aside?" Mark reached out, but she stepped back, her heart pounding in her ears. "Just give me a chance to explain," she shot back, her heart racing. "You had me thinking everything was fine." He averted his gaze, shame hanging heavy in the air. "I thought I could handle it, all of it," she echoed, disbelief radiating through her. "You're the one who kept me in the dark." Around them, the lobby atmosphere shifted from casual to intense. Guests whispered, watching the unfolding drama like a live theater show. The whispers pressed down on her as Liz pulled away, feeling the weight of shame and anger mingling inside. Mark implored, desperation creeping into his voice. "I made mistakes, big ones." As the news anchor continued detailing the growing scandal, Liz couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the tip of the iceberg. "Why didn't you come to me?" he declared, frustration etching lines across his face. "Fix it. How can you fix something that feels like a bomb?" She closed her eyes, trying to gather her thoughts. "Please," he said, his voice laced with vulnerability. "I need you to believe in me, in us." The aching silence between them felt insurmountable. Every second hung thick in the air, and Liz felt torn. Could she trust him again? Was there a way back from this? She searched his eyes, looking for some sign that he was telling the truth. Liz whispered. Mark looked lost, fear and regret swirling in his eyes. "I don't want to lose you." As the TV continued to spit out sensational accusations, Liz felt an emotional wall start to build in her heart. She gasped, the reality of the situation crashing back down. "You've been a role model for those kids, and now this." A surge of guilt crossed Mark's face, the shame spilling over. He exclaimed. Liz echoed incredulously. "This is more than just losing control, Mark," he yelled, his voice rising. "I know it can ruin everything." Liz stepped back, her mind racing. This wasn't just about them anymore, it was about lives and futures caught in the crossfire. The weight of it all felt unbearable. "I can't do this," Liz finally whispered, emotions choking her throat. Mark stepped towards her, desperation splashed across his voice. "I'll do anything to regain your trust. Please don't walk away." Tears brimming in her eyes, Liz shook her head, feeling torn apart. I don't even know what together means anymore. His expression fell, the battle within him raging as he looked into her eyes. Because the truth is, I need you. I can't face this without you. The love between them felt so real, yet now it seemed fragile, suspended in air. Liz felt the pull of her heart and the weight of betrayal. I don't know if it's enough right now, she said, her voice a whisper, heavy with pain. As the news report continued on the screen, Liz turned away from Mark, grappling with a wave of despair. Trust, they both knew, was a delicate thing. It could build castles, but it could also destroy them brick by brick. The lobby began to fade, reality speeding by as Liz stepped back, heart pounding in her chest. She needed space to think, to gather her thoughts, to process the storm swirling inside her. I need time, she finally said, shaking her head slowly. With every step she took away from him, the pain echoed in the recesses of her heart. Mark called after her, voice desperate as if she were walking away from everything they fought to build. But the world faded into a blur, her heart heavy with the weight of the moment. Outside the hotel lobby, the sun blazed bright, almost mocking her as she stepped into the open air. She felt broken, but she also felt torn between love and betrayal. Could she forgive him? Could she stand tall in the face of these accusations? Reality spun around her, swirling in a chaotic dance of emotions. She paused, taking in the world around her. For better or worse, she knew they had a long road ahead to rebuild from this, and even that path felt unclear. As she took a deep breath, steeling herself, she realized she would need to confront the storm ahead, not just for Mark, but for herself. The future was uncertain, but she wouldn't let fear hijack her heart. With each step forward, small flickers of hope broke through the clouds of doubt. She didn't have all the answers, but she was determined to seek the truth, even if it meant against the heart of the man she once thought she knew. The journey might break them apart, but perhaps in time it could also lead to something stronger, a bond forged through honesty, resilience, and the messy reality of love. Only time would tell. Liz's voice pierced through the bustling lobby of the Grandview Hotel, turning heads and silencing conversations. The polished marble gleamed beneath bright chandeliers, but right then it felt like a stage for their very public meltdown. Mark stood across the room, his phone clutched firmly in one hand, looking like he had just stepped into a storm. He protested, but Liz wasn't having it. "Work, you promised me you'd take this weekend for us." Her frustration was palpable, radiating from her like heat from a fire, threatening to engulf everything in its path. The truth was, this wasn't just about being late. Liz was tired of feeling like she was constantly fighting for Mark's attention, always competing with his job for a piece of his heart. They had planned this trip to rekindle their romance, but it felt like every time they were close to connecting, something else pulled him away. "Liz, I get it, but things have been crazy at the office." She cut him off, hands resting on her hips as frustration sparred with heartbreak inside her chest. "I can't keep doing this." As they stood there, the tension coursed between them like electricity, thick and brittle. Mark's shoulders sagged, wrestling with the weight of his own choices. Dozens of strangers bustled past them, oblivious to the emotional turmoil unfolding in front of their eyes. But Liz felt as if they were completely alone, marooned in a sea of misunderstanding. Just as Liz prepared to unleash another round of frustration, the large television mounted on the wall blared to life, filling the space with breaking news. The dramatic shift in focus shattered the bubble of anger surrounding them. "We interrupt this broadcast to bring you some shocking news," the anchor announced, her voice crisp, echoing across the lobby. "Local youth sports coach Mark Harris is under investigation for financial misconduct." Liz's breath caught in her throat. She froze mid-sentence, eyes glued to the screen as Mark's face flickered into view. He looked stricken, caught off guard, just like her. The anchor continued, outlining explosive details as the situation unfolded like a bad dream. Each word sank deeper than any argument they had just had. Liz turned to Mark, shock washing over her like ice water. "Mark, is this for real?" His expression faltered, the panic evident in his features. I didn't want you to find out like this." There was urgency in his voice, desperation spilling from him. She echoed, her voice a mixture of disbelief and betrayal. When you figured it wouldn't blow up in your face." "I swear, Liz, I thought I could fix it before it got this far. I didn't want you to worry," he stammered, looking as if he were fighting for breath. Waves of anger struck her again, but this time they were laced with disbelief. Somehow their fight had grown from a small annoyance to a life-altering revelation. The anchor continued to speak, detailing how the community was reeling from the news, and Liz felt every part of her start to unravel. "We were supposed to be on a mini vacation, rethinking everything." Mark stepped forward, desperation painting his features. "It's not who I am, it's something that spiraled out of control. Doing the right thing." She struggled to hold back the tears threatening to spill. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he admitted, his voice crumbling. "I thought I could make it better before you found out. I was trying to manage everything, be the perfect coach, the perfect boyfriend." The truth hit hard, but it twisted like a knife in her gut. The disappointment flooded her voice. Mark was silent for what felt like an eternity, his shoulders slumped as he battled demons invisible to anyone but them. "Please, I didn't want you to find out this way," he finally said. Liz tried to breathe, feeling the weight of their entire relationship pressed against her chest. Your mess, she snapped, the reality cutting deeper than she ever thought possible. Are you even thinking about how your actions affect the kids? All around them, the lobby was buzzing, a beautiful facade now coloring a painful moment in their lives. A couple near the news screen exchanged confused glances, sensing the emotional storm between them. She cried, her voice trembling with intensity. You've worked so hard to build your career, and now it's all going to come crashing down. He pleaded, desperation seeping through. I really do. I wanted to do something to help them, but then every little choice snowballed. She shouted back, her heart aching in disbelief. And here we are. Do you think you can fix this? I'm going to fight it, he said, determination igniting in his eyes. I'll hire a lawyer, speak to reporters, do whatever it takes to make it right. I need you with me, Liz. Her heart twisted, caught between love and overwhelming betrayal. Maybe she had never seen him as clearly as she needed to. What was I to you? Mark's expression shifted, hurt clouding his features. Don't say that, you're everything to me. The news continued looping in the background, stirring the air thick with complications and uncertainty. I need some space, Liz eventually said, her voice barely above a whisper, conflicted emotions swirling inside her. He reached out, but she stepped back, needing to put distance between them. I need to think, she insisted, feeling as if the ground had tilted beneath them. The reality of the situation settled heavy in the air, each moment stretching painfully. Their fight wasn't merely a disagreement anymore. It had transformed into a crisis, a fracture that could either tear them apart for good or force some kind of painful reckoning. Maybe that's what you need to understand, she said, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. If you want me to stay, you need to show me you're worth the fight. With that, Liz turned and walked away, a kaleidoscope of heartbreak reflecting in her mind. Each step felt heavier, filled with uncertainty, the gravity of their moment pressing down on her like a weight she couldn't shake off. Between the news report playing in the background and Mark's pleading eyes, she felt like she was losing her footing. Mark's voice echoed behind her, desperate and raw. Wait, but she continued walking, clinging to fragments of hope even as doubts flooded her heart. She would need time to unravel all of this, to sort through the tangled mess of emotions. Outside, the bright sunlight met her like an old friend, offering comfort as she emerged from the hotel's shadow. The world carried on the honking cars, distant laughter, and the hum of everyday life began to drown out the chaos of that moment. Questions cluttered her mind. How could she trust him again? Could they ever move past this? As Liz walked, the challenges ahead danced before her like shadows, flickering with uncertainty. The flickering news report faded into the background, and she understood that the real news was still to come, the story of what they might or might not be able to fight for. Every relationship faces storms, but this was a tempest she never saw coming. There was a long road ahead, a journey filled with obstacles, but whether it led to healing or more heartbreak remained to be seen. Each step felt like both closure and a beginning. And as she moved forward, Liz knew one thing for sure. The fight was far from over. It had just begun. Liz's voice cracked through the elegant lobby of the Grandview Hotel, ringing off the marble floors and drawing curious glances from passerby guests. The sun poured through the grand windows, illuminating the chandelier overhead, but Liz felt trapped in a shadow of frustration. Across from her stood Mark, his eyes wide and frantic, glancing down at his phone as if it held the answers. He stammered, his tone edged with disbelief. I got held up at work. Liz snapped, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Every second felt like torture as they both stood there, locked in a standoff. You said this was our weekend. Mark pressed his lips together, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. I didn't mean to make you feel that way, Liz. It's just chaos. She couldn't help it. Anger dripped from her words. The feelings had been building for weeks, and this moment was just the final straw. He pleaded, voice rising slightly, now drawing even more attention. The words hung heavily in the air, each syllable a piece of their relationship cracking under pressure. As tensions escalated, the large television mounted in the lobby suddenly flickered to life, interrupting the storm swirling between them. The anchor's voice broke through, urgent and crisp, pulling Liz's attention away from Mark. Breaking news. The world around her faded, and Liz felt like she had just stepped into a scene from a movie, a dark twist she never expected. She blinked at the screen, her heart racing. She knew that face all too well. The familiar image of Mark stared back at her, mouth moving anxiously as the anchor continued to speak. Sources indicate that several parents of youth players have raised concerns about missing funds intended for community sports programs. Mark paled, color draining from his face, while Liz felt her breath catch in her throat. Mark, is this? The words came out barely above a whisper, panic clenching her stomach. I didn't want you to find out like this, he stammered, desperation flooding his voice. She shot back, now trying to gather her own thoughts amidst the chaos unfurling before them. I was going to tell you. He looked almost frantic now, shifting from foot to foot, glancing at the screen, then back at her. Handle what? Liz fired back, disbelief and anger surfacing. How could he think this was something he could manage alone? Please let me explain. His voice cracked, and she could see panic dancing in his eyes. No, you don't get to explain after hiding something so monumental. The weight of his secrecy felt heavier than she had ever imagined. The The TV continued, detailing more about the investigation, and Liz felt every word gnawing at her heart. Authorities are looking into the administration of funds as accusations spiral in the community. Mark exclaimed, his own frustration bubbling to the surface. I thought I was doing good, Liz exclaimed, struggling against the rising tide of emotions within her. You even hear yourself right now. There was sincerity in his eyes, but it felt overshadowed by the enormity of what he had done. I thought if I just fix everything. That notion hit her like a punch to the gut. Mark's attempts to help hadn't just backfired, they now threatened to crush everything they had. All those talks about dreams, about being a role model for those kids. The tremor in her voice betrayed the anger simmering on the surface, and tears burned at the corners of her eyes. He reached out, but she stepped back, needing distance to feel her own ground again. It's not just a dumb choice, Mark. You've put all of this at risk, she exclaimed, voice rising again as reality closed in around them. Please don't talk like that. His voice held desperation, pleading with her to understand. Fix it. How do you plan to fix this? You've already made the choice to keep secrets. The sting of his betrayal cut through the air, leaving them both exposed. The tension in the room thickened, other guests increasingly aware of the heat radiating off their confrontation. Whispers danced around them as if the whole hotel was part of their very personal drama. I can fix this, he repeated, almost like a mantra now. She interrupted, shaking her head, her heart racing in confusion. You think a few meetings will erase what's happening right now? Look at you. I was scared, he admitted, voice trembling. Scared of failing, scared of ruining what we had, I thought. Her heart ached at his vulnerability, but the pain morphed into anger. Scared of failing, the news anchor continued to unfold the story, but Liz couldn't hear it anymore. The world blurred, twisting and turning in chaotic motion. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this, Mark murmured, his eyes pleading with her to see the bigger picture. She echoed, tears streaming down her face. All I feel right now is betrayal. Everything feels broken. It's not who I am. Mark stepped closer, reaching for her, but she recoiled, feeling as if the fabric of their life had unraveled before her very eyes. She cried, desperation coloring her voice. How do you expect me to move forward after you've hidden something so significant from me? Silence hung heavy in the air, charged and electric. Time stood still around them, and Liz felt every heart-wrenching moment settle deep within her bones. He asked, voice breaking as he sought her gaze. I can't do this right now, she said, emotions crashing over her. I need to think, to breathe. Panic filled his eyes. Liz, please don't leave me like this. We can fix it together. She stepped back, shaking her head. This doesn't feel like something we face together anymore. You've kept me out of your life in the worst way, and now it's not just about you. I'm sorry, he whispered, a soft plea that threatened to break her heart all over again. I need to go, she said firmly, turning away as her own emotions threatened to explode. She couldn't bear the sight of the man who had become a stranger, so deeply entwined in the chaos he had created. His voice cracked as she moved farther away, her heart aching with each step she took. She felt a deep sense of loss, like walking away from the best parts of herself as well as the memories they had built. She stepped outside, the cold air hitting her face like a splash of reality. The vibrant sounds of the city began to drown out the chaos, and she took a deep breath, steadying herself. But as she walked away from the Grandview Hotel, she realized she wasn't just walking away from Mark. She was stepping away from familiarity and love toward uncertainty and pain. Could they ever rebuild from this? Could she trust him again? The questions churned inside her, each one like a stone sinking into a stream. The gravity of the situation began to settle in, and with each step, Liz felt more lost than ever. She needed time to think, to process, to grieve the loss of what could have been a romantic weekend turned into a monumental decision point in their lives. But even as she walked away, a small flicker of hope remained, nestled between the cracks of her heart. Could they fight for what they once had, or was this the end? The road ahead was shrouded in darkness, uncertainty tracing every step she took. And as she ventured out into the unfamiliar terrain of her emotional landscape, she knew she would have to confront it all: her trust, her love, and the reality of a future that now hung precariously in the balance. For better or for worse, this was a journey they had to navigate one way or another. With a heavy heart and a mind filled with questions, she took her first steps toward the future, whatever it might hold. Liz's voice cut through the air, filled with a mix of anger and desperation. The lobby of the Grandview Hotel was buzzing with the chatter of guests, but in that moment it felt like they were the only two people in the world. You're always late, Mark. Mark shifted nervously, his phone clutched tightly in his hand. He defended, glancing down as if expecting the ground to swallow him whole. Work, this weekend was supposed to be about us. Her heart raced as frustration boiled over. They had been planning this getaway for weeks, and once again, she felt like an afterthought. I'm trying, he looked up, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Liz shot back, arms folded across her chest, feeling like she was arguing with a ghost. Mark opened his mouth to reply, but the words fell silent. He rubbed the back of his neck, searching for something to say, while Liz felt the walls closing in on her. They had come to this gorgeous hotel to reconnect, to unwind, yet here they were, deep in yet another fight about priorities. No sooner had the silence settled over them than the wall-mounted television blared to life, drawing their attention like a moth to a flame. "Breaking news from our city," the anchor announced, her tone urgent and serious. Time seemed to freeze as Liz's heart dropped. Mark's face blanched, his eyes widening in disbelief. He whispered almost to himself as the anchor continued, detailing the allegations and how they had caught the community off guard. "This cannot be happening," Liz said, feeling a sense of dread wash over her. She turned to Mark, panic swirling in her chest. I didn't want you to find out like this," he stammered, shifting his weight nervously. The room around them faded into a blur and the weight of reality began to set in. "What is going on, Mark?" Mark looked around, spotting the eyes of nearby guests who were tuned into their confrontation. "I was going to tell you," he said, voice filled with urgency. "Handle what? You're under investigation." Liz felt her heart racing, anger and betrayal rippling through her. "You think I care about your secrets?" He shot back, desperation lining his words. Behind them, the anchor continued to elaborate on the disturbing details, and Liz felt a chill creep down her spine. "Please, Liz," Mark pleaded, his voice cracking. "It's not what it looks like. Manage the funds." The anger within her ignited. "You've put your entire career at risk. What about the kids you've been mentoring?" I truly believed I was doing the right thing," he insisted, falling into the pattern of grasping at excuses. Right thing, her frustration morphed into disbelief. Mark lowered his head, shoulders slumping as guilt washed over his features. "I didn't want to drag you into this mess. Fix it." The words felt sharp and painful, cutting through the air like shards of glass. His voice softened, filled with regret, but the moment felt too fragile. Liz shouted, feeling the sting of tears in her eyes. She glanced at the TV again, her heart racing as the report continued to unravel the story. "Many are calling for accountability as the investigation ramps up," the anchor stated, detailing how support for the team waned in light of the scandal. Mark stepped closer. "You have to understand, I was trying to help the kids. This got out of control. I thought I could solve it before it reached this point." The tension in the air thickened, raw and electric. The lobby buzzed with murmurs, people were watching, but all Liz could focus on was the storm within her heart. She asked, voice trembling. Mark looked desperate, searching for some way to convey his sincerity, but words felt like feeble bandages on a deep wound. The heaviness of his words fell between them, a warning and a plea wrapped in vulnerability. With shaking hands, Liz paused. "You don't seem to realize how serious this is. If they press charges, they could tear down everything we thought we knew. I will make this right." His determination was evident, but Liz struggled to see it through the fog of hurt and disappointment. She exclaimed, "What will happen to us when this all unravels?" Silence hung between them, almost suffocating as the broadcast rolled on. Words became stilted and heavy with unspoken fears. "I thought I was protecting you by keeping this from you," Mark said, his voice gaining strength. "But I see now how that was wrong. I care about you more than anything else, and I need to make it right." Liz echoed, shaking her head slowly. "You made your choices, and now we have to deal with the consequences." The skepticism in her voice made him flinch. He reached out again, desperate to grasp onto whatever trust might still exist. "I can't do this without you. I need time to think," Liz replied, her voice softer now but still firm. "I can't jump into this without knowing where you stand." Mark's face fell, despair etched in every line as he realized just how deep the rift had formed. "No, please don't say that. I'm asking for you to just trust me one more time." As the news report reached a conclusion, Liz felt the air crackle with tension. She wanted nothing more than to believe him, but the betrayal felt fresh and raw, marking the foundation of their love. "I need to step away," she said, taking a deep breath to steady herself against the whirlwind of emotions swirling around her. With that, she turned and walked toward the lobby exit, her heart heavy as pain rippled out with each step. He called after her, his voice barely carrying through the din of the lobby's chaos. But she couldn't turn back, couldn't bear the weight of the past few minutes, let alone the uncertainty looming ahead. As she stepped outside, the crisp air hit her face, offering some clarity. She needed space to breathe, to process what had just transpired. With every footstep, the enormity of the situation loomed larger, questions flooding her mind. Could she trust him again after what he had done? Around her, the city thrummed with life, contrasting sharply with the turmoil within her. With each passing moment, the weight of their confrontation lingered, casting a dark shadow on everything that had once felt bright and hopeful. Liz looked up at the sky, where the sun tried to break through the clouds. She was searching for answers, but was met with only silence. She felt lost adrift on a sea of uncertainty. Could they ever rebuild the trust they had lost? Could love survive the storm brewing around them? The questions felt like stones sinking in her heart, heavy and unyielding. As she stood outside, the noise of the city faded to a whisper, and she realized that they were both now facing a crossroad. One path led deeper into darkness, while the other hinted at possible redemption. Taking a deep breath, Liz steeled her resolve. They would have to confront this together. But first, she needed to figure out if their relationship could withstand the tempest of change. It wouldn't be easy, nothing worthwhile ever was. But Liz felt a flicker of hope within the shadows, a belief that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. With every step she took away from the hotel, Liz knew she was embarking on a journey, one filled with uncertainty but also the possibility of healing. The road ahead would not be simple, but she was determined to confront whatever came next, one step at a time. Liz shouted, her voice echoing in the expansive lobby of the Grandview Hotel. The hustle of travelers, the scent of fresh coffee, and the polished marble floor only seemed to amplify her frustration. It felt surreal to lose control in such a beautiful place, but she couldn't contain herself any longer. Mark stood across from her, his phone in hand, a look of confusion etched across his face. "I'm sorry, Liz, work ran late." Liz felt her heart pound as she crossed her arms tightly over her chest. "Your best isn't enough. You promised me this weekend would be different." Mark looked defensive, but there was a flicker of guilt in his eyes. "I didn't mean to ruin our plans." She was nearly shouting now, and she could sense other guests stealing glances in their direction. She didn't care. Every part of her felt raw and exposed, and she wanted to let it all out. Just then, the flat-screen TV mounted in the lobby blared to life, and the anchor's voice cut through their heated argument. "Breaking news this morning." Liz's heart sank, and she felt the ground beneath her tremble. Time seemed to stand still as the camera zoomed in on a familiar face. Mark's. His expression shifted from confusion to horror as he stared at the screen, the reality crashing in on him like a tidal wave. "Wait, what? This can't be happening," Liz whispered, her breath catching in her throat. She turned to Mark, her heart racing with disbelief. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he stammered, looking like a deer caught in headlights. She demanded, feeling a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. Mark shook his head, trying to gather his thoughts. "It's complicated. I was going to tell you." The anchor continued reporting, detailing the allegations of misappropriated funds and how parents were outraged. "Concerns have been raised regarding the misuse of money that was supposed to support young athletes in the community," said the anchor, her tone grave. No, this can't be happening," Liz said, panic spilling into her voice. He looked desperate, pleading with her, but the words felt as hollow as the space between them. "But you're putting everything at risk." An odd silence settled between them, thick with unresolved anger and fear. The warm colors of the hotel lobby faded into a cold reality, the vibrancy replaced by the heaviness of betrayal. Liz could hear the murmurs of other guests, feeling like a spotlight was trained on them. She pressed, her voice a mix of disbelief and hurt. He asserted, but even he sounded unsure of himself. "Help," the words flew out before she could even think them through. "How do you expect me to shoulder this?" His expression fell, and she could see the depths of regret swirling in his eyes. "I was scared, Liz. I didn't want to involve you in this mess," she echoed bitterly. "By lying, you should have come to me and faced this together." Tension crackled in the air like electricity, and Liz felt the world around them shrink down to just the two of them standing amidst chaos. She wanted to scream, to cry, to make sense of it all, but she felt paralyzed. Mark pleaded, desperation etched in his voice. "I care about you. This isn't who I am." Liz shot back, feeling the sting of tears threaten to break free. A voice chimed in from behind them. An older gentleman with graying hair had stopped to watch their argument, clearly feeling the weight of the moment. Mark looked back at the man, desperate for a lifeline, but Liz was already too far gone. "You think he has the right to play the victim now?" Liz felt sick. It was one thing to confront Mark's choices, but watching his life unravel in real time was another beast entirely. "I'll fix this," he insisted, stepping forward as if he could bridge the chasm that had opened between them. "I'll face whoever I need to face." Talk to the parents, the players. She echoed, skepticism filling her voice. "How can you prove anything when you've hidden the truth?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration morphing into despair before her eyes. "I know I messed up, but please don't walk away now. I can't do this without you." The pleading in his voice almost broke her resolve, but the hurt threatened to drown her. "I need time," Liz whispered finally, feeling the heavy weight of her choice. The world around her began to blur as she turned to leave, weary from a combat she never signed up for. Mark's voice echoed, a call that hung in the air like the fading notes of a sorrowful song. But she didn't look back, she couldn't. Each step felt heavier, the weight of their shattered dreams pressing down on her shoulders. As she exited the hotel, the cool air hit her, and chaos transformed into clarity. She needed to breathe, to think, to process everything that had just transpired. The questions flooded her mind as she stepped away from the building. Could she trust him again? Could love survive this turmoil? As she strolled down the street, the noises of the city became muffled, a dull roar compared to the internal storm raging within her. Each step felt like a plunge into uncertainty, and the world around her spun with possibilities she hadn't yet considered. What would happen next? Would he be able to salvage his career? Could their relationship withstand the fallout? In that moment, Liz made a choice. She wouldn't let fear guide her. If Mark was willing to fight for what they had, then she needed to meet him halfway, but only after considering everything thoroughly. When she reached a park bench, she sat down and stared up at the sky, the clouds swirling in a dance above her. It was time to think not just about Mark, but about herself. What did she want? What did she need? Meanwhile, back in the lobby, Mark still stood frozen, staring at the TV screen where his life had just been laid bare. The moment felt surreal, like watching a movie where everything around him fell apart. He realized the icy grip of fear tightening in his chest did little but fuel his regrets. The older man from earlier asked, stepping closer, his gaze piercing. "I know," Mark sighed, the heaviness of guilt weighing him down. The older man patted him on the shoulder. "Face it, take responsibility." Just then, the phone in Mark's pocket buzzed violently, breaking through the fog of uncertainty. He pulled it out and checked the screen. An incoming call from the school board. Panic surged through him as he glanced back at the news report. There was no more running. It was time to face the consequences. As he took a deep breath, steeling himself for the storm ahead, his heart raced and thoughts of Liz echoed in his mind. Would she still be there when the dust settled? The phone continued to vibrate, insistent, as Mark looked between the screen and the news. There was still hope, but it would take everything within him to fight for it. The future seemed more uncertain than ever. And as Liz sat alone with her thoughts, both their fates hung by a thread, poised on the edge of revelation, waiting to see if love could rise from the ashes of truth and betrayal. And in that moment, an impending feeling hung in the air, a whisper of dread that the real battle was only just beginning. What would their choices yield? What truths lay hidden yet to be uncovered? The world felt on the edge, teetering between redemption and ruin, and neither Mark nor Liz knew which path they would ultimately choose.